Okay, next up, we have another thought-provoking presentation. I'd like to call on stage Nick Glidden, Chief Enterprise Business Officer, Vodafone Idea Limited. Nick sets the enterprise strategy and go-to-market strategy in India. He holds the responsibility for sales, service, marketing, product, and commercial engagement with Vodafone Idea's enterprise and carrier customers. Welcome, Nick, on stage.
So good morning. That was very reserved. Good morning. Thank you very much. Arup, what a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. We're making some history today. This is the first time that we have presented as Vodafone Idea to an external conference. So I think that's a pretty history-making moment. I hope the next 10 minutes will give you some feeling that it's been worthwhile and you're not disappointed. So Arup talked about if your business, if your teams, if your company is not driving exponential growth, you've got a problem. Linear growth is 20th century. Yeah? I come in an industry, I come today to talk to you from an industry that double-digit growth, I think you highlighted and said that's what we should do. The growth we're seeing today in the industry in India is the biggest data growth in the world. 10%, I think you said double-digit. We see data growth in excess of 60, 70, 80%. We're not seeing revenues growing 60, 70, 80%. That's our challenge as an industry, okay? You will have all seen your mobile phone or your costs go down. But what we're seeing and what I think is really critical for us is that digital disruption and that change and that opportunity. So I'm going to talk really just through what we're seeing, why we think India is just a fantastic place to be, and what we think that digital disruption might mean in terms of driving growth or driving opportunity. So, first premise, first point, first area. There has never been a better time to be in India. You're all looking at each other, right? Now, you're all looking at each other. We came in this morning and we started and I had some conversations on foreign exchange, price of oil. We weren't the most happy people this morning, right? But actually, when you think about it, economy, second largest economy in the world by 2050, population, demographics, age of that population, scale of that population, some of the areas that Arup talked about. If you look at India, and I've only ever seen this once in my life before when I was in Egypt during the revolution, the jump from being an analog society to a digital society has happened probably in the last 2 years, in the last 3 years. I don't think any other society has seen that. So this is India's century, demographics, economic, 41 trillion economy by 2050, but it's also a digital century. And one of the points that I want to talk about, and one of the points that I think is very interesting in what we see as Vodafone Idea, is how that digital century is coming into being. So if we say that India is going to be the second largest economy in the world in 2050, what has to change between now and the future? So if you take Arup's mega trends, that wonderful circle with all of those trends, I'm going to say one of the things that will enable India to take advantage of that, be it smart cities, be it smart things, IoT, talking a lot about automotive and IoT this morning, is that ability to have digital connectivity. And so one of the big changes we're seeing is that digital connectivity is put in the hands of individuals for the first time and machines. And what we mean by when we say that digital connectivity is put in the hands of individuals is we have jumped. If you go to certain organizations, Startup India, if you go to Bangalore, the way those individuals work, the way those companies work, is different to the way we would have worked traditionally because we evolved through digital transformation. If you go to an 18-year-old or a 24-year-old in some of our youth brackets and some of the work we do in our consumer teams, they do not consume services. They do not engage through a traditional way. They engage through mobility. They don't want a keyboard. They don't want a traditional way of working. So there are about 494 million mobile internet subscribers in India. Top mobile internet or top internet consumer in the world. 11 gigs of data on average per month. Pretty cool. Pretty good, right? In 3 years. If you go back and Frost & Sullivan do a lot of work with us, and you can go and look at the Frost & Sullivan data reports, that would have been, and I'm searching for someone that would tell me, I think it would probably have been closer to 500 meg 3 years ago. So what does that mean? For me, that means phenomenal disruption. It gives social change. I've seen this in Egypt when, as I say, the revolution was there. When the revolution happened, social media took off, and we saw small and medium-sized businesses did not set up a website and ask you to take their business through the website. They did it through F-commerce. They did it through Facebook commerce. Why do I need a website? Everyone's on Facebook. Why do I need that economic? That's not the way people consume. If you look at age, we talk about a new range of consumers. That range of consumers is phenomenal. If you look at 18 to 24 or under 25-year-olds in India today, about 50% of the population is under 25. By 2020, 65 of it will be over 25. There's a tipping point coming on that age demographics and that age of consumption and that capability of consumption. Digital distribution. We talked about digital distribution and procurement with Suraj, and I think we'll talk about it on the panel. But one of the things we're seeing as a telecommunications provider is lots of people are coming to us and saying, actually, can you distribute? Can we distribute through you? Can you give us big data information on that distribution? If you think about the traditional market of fast-moving consumer goods, fast-moving consumer goods would say, I distributed that to my wholesaler in Mumbai, I have no visibility of where that product has now gone. Actually, that product could go from Mumbai to Bangalore, from Bangalore to Kerala, from Kerala back to Mumbai. And very often does. And we have no visibility. So that opportunity to partner, to look at those areas. We talked about digital workplaces, and we talk about digital machines and Internet of Things. Now, in Internet of Things, we see Internet of Things in two areas. We see Internet of Things in industrial. It tends to be the traditional way, the connected car, some of those areas that we've talked about. In India, we're seeing a hell of a development on smart grid and smart meters, massive developments with some of the things that the government programs are driving at a macro level. But we also see it in consumer wearables. For us, one of the biggest growth areas will be consumer wearables. And how will that work? And if you think about India as a textile nation, as a textile manufacturing nation, it's an incredibly interesting way that not only will affect the supply chain and the management of that supply chain, but also the distribution and those goods and the information to have off those goods and off those consumers. So some very big changes. Now, you saw, and I had 10 minutes to try and talk about what are those technical impacts, what is that technology impact. One of my big advices is to really look at your value chain as a company and then understand where that value chain comes. And one of the areas that we've tried to prioritize is to say, in India, cloud and connectivity, mobile data, and IoT are three themes that you could take and you could run through. And if you run through those themes, you can see a lot of the areas that Arup presented in his slides earlier. They go in those themes. Why? Because in those themes, if you don't take that thought process, you have a challenge, and technology can swamp you. If I give you a little example on telecom, and I'll give you a little example on SaaS. On telecom, those of you that are a Vodafone Idea user may well have received a text message saying, are you traveling? Would you like to enable your roaming pack? Because you've come to a hotel by the international airport. That's our big data telling us that's where you are. Maybe you need to do this. If we take automotive, we'll talk about it on the panel, but if we think about SaaS for SME, we're seeing one of the biggest growth areas of software as a service and managed services with our SME and SOHO organizations. The economy is formalizing. GST is driving that formalization, and small and medium-sized enterprises are buying differently. So, for me, when we talk about that challenge of technology creates opportunities for growth, there's three things I would recommend. Firstly, think about your process, your business, and where you're being disruptive, and Arup mentioned how that's happening. Secondly, pick the technologies you want to work with. We just picked three. And then thirdly, work out how those technologies transform the business. It's the best time to be in India. Thank you.